Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm Elliot Margolis. I'm here with my co-host, George Binns, and our guest tonight is John Paul Moran, running for Congress against our current Congressman, Seth Moulton. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Elliot. Thanks for having me.
Why are you running?
Well, there's a few reasons why I'm running. I consider myself an unconventional candidate in the sense that I've been running a nonprofit called Grand Opportunity USA, and that the idea was I could be more influential running this nonprofit to reach younger and more diverse voters with a conservative message by running Go USA, as I call it. That was kind of based on a book I wrote in 2016 indirectly called Cues for Conservatives. And after giving it some thought and being asked by many people, many of my friends in the conservative movement, kind of I consider the unconventional conservative movement. I have a number of gay friends and friends of various kind of minority backgrounds who have been asking me to run, the RNC, people in the Mass GOP and others. And I said, you know what, enough yelling from the outside, how about I yell from the inside? I mean, we have people on the left, like Crazy AOC, and she may be yelling nonsense, but her nonsense, she's yelling, and she's making a difference. She's more or less indirectly now almost in control of the entire Democrat Party, as you can see from the impeachment bonanza that happened, I think largely because leftists like herself. So my feeling is if the left can employ this strategy of get on the inside and make change, I said, you know what, enough yelling from the outside. Let me help people. Let me help the 6th District from the inside.
When you say help the 6th District, exactly what do you have in mind? What do you think the big problems are that we need to fix? We need to have fixed? There's
a lot. I mean, I have to...
Well, give me your top 3.
I'd say the first problem we have is Seth Moulton. If Seth Moulton was doing the job he said he was going to do when he was elected 6 years ago, he was going to be a change agent. He was going to be doing things for veterans. He was going to be helping the city of Lynn with business. He was going to help transportation. He was going to help all these things. And he's not. And people I talk with throughout the district on both sides of the aisle, I've met people who are neighbors of his, who are Democrats, who want to help me out because they're so disappointed with how he's performed. So his job performance is terrible, and he's not serving the citizens of the 6th District.
Well, back to the positive side of this thing, what would you do different? What do you think the problems are that should be attacked first?
Well, there's a lot of them. I mean, I'm not... the healthcare in our state is atrocious. People think it's the model for healthcare nationally, but the doctor-patient relationship now is severed. Insurance companies are controlling it. The costs are going up and quality is going down. I see my healthcare costs going up constantly, and I'm getting less and less service, higher and higher fees. So there's a problem there. I haven't heard anything from Seth Moulton on healthcare. The public transportation, the Blue Line going up the North Shore, that's been talked about forever. Housing prices are high, and obviously because the stock market, because the real estate market is booming. But the downside of that is it's hard to find affordable housing. And two things are overzealous zoning and regulations, and the public infrastructure for public transportation is a disaster. It's taking longer and longer and longer to commute in and out of Boston, in and out of Lynn, in and out of Peabody. That's not being addressed. So veterans are unhappy with Seth Moulton. He's a veteran. That's his calling card. Yet I read a study that 1 out of 6 veterans was being misdiagnosed for traumatic brain injuries. That's absurd, right? And there's homeless veterans, and yet people like Seth Moulton want to import more illegal immigrants. Where are they going to put them? There's not even enough room to house veterans. So there's just a lot of things. Common Core, I'm completely against. That's another example of, government's been spending more and more and more. I understand almost triple what it used to spend on the federal level on education, and test scores go down, right? Government is, the more you spend more and the quality goes down. Free markets are the only mechanism that quality goes up and costs go down. But the left loves big government, and everything they touches turns to garbage. So there's a lot that I want to fix. Those are just a few things. Protecting our constitutional liberties. I mean, what they want to do, Seth Moulton, again, a disgrace. He's a Marine and a Marine veteran, and he is against the Second Amendment. I mean, he's made many comments about the Second Amendment. And of course, common sense protections with background checks, I think most people agree with. Most people on the right agree with that. But he's all out for the crazy lunatic type of things like they tried to pull off in Virginia. So I can't think of there's a long list. Life rights. I mean, I believe he's for late-term abortions, and the vast majority of the public, I think something around 70% or more, are against late-term abortions. So one point after another, he is not in sync with what people in the district want. And again, he's not performing. What I've seen, he's just not been doing anything. He's been spending his time trying to overthrow Nancy Pelosi and run for higher office, run for president, polling at 0%, yet he thinks he should run for president. I mean, who runs for president with polling at 0%? Couldn't he have done polling before he went into the race to realize he had zero chance? So instead of spending the time in his district, he's spending his time going after going after higher positions that he has no chance of. So again, I think it's bad judgment, and he's not serving the people of the district. So that's the main thing I'd say. Well, what got me into the race, first of all, is we had such a terrible representative that we have to do something about, and we need someone else better servicing the district. So,
what did you think of the whole impeachment situation?
Well, I think that even people on the left, I have Democrat friends that see that. At first, I think they believed a lot of the hoopla. They believed that, Trump has to be guilty of something. How could anybody have a 3.5 years of nonstop CNN, MSNBC, the Democrat Party, nonstop. Trump stole the election. Trump colluded with the Russians, one thing after another. And they know they didn't have a case for it. There's never in the history of the country has there been an impeachment that was 100% one-sided in Congress, right? Never happened before. And Nancy Pelosi said she would not pursue impeachment unless there was support from both sides. And yet she was pressured by the far left socialist, I even call some of them communist in the Democrat Party to go for this. And it was like a suicide mission. They had no chance of winning, but they had to do it because they had attacked Trump is basically all the Democrats know. That's the same with Seth Moulton. Their fuel is get up every day and how can we attack Trump, who is doing so good for our country in so many ways. So I think it's getting back to impeachment. It's terrible. I think it was a waste of time. It was a waste of money. Things were not done for 3.5 years since the Democrats took Congress. They've really done nothing. What have they got done? They co-signed one deal with Trump's trade agreement with Mexico and Canada, but they haven't done anything else. So I think it's just been a colossal waste of time. And again, it's Trump derangement syndrome on steroids is what I think it is.
Well, basically, the function of a representative in Congress is twofold. You have to represent your district.
Yes.
I think we mentioned earlier, and you went through some things, and I'd like to get into a little more detail of, transportation is horrible, and commuting is horrible. What can we do at the congressional level as opposed to the state level? What can you do to make some of those things better? But the other half of the game is Congress controls the purse strings, theoretically. And George Carlin would not like me using that, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But Congress controls the purse strings and is supposed to be running the country and setting the laws.
Yeah.
And yet we've got the situation with the Affordable Care Act that has turned into something less than desirable in a lot of cases. And a few other things. So in your mind, as the new representative, how would you plan on splitting your time between issues directly infecting the 6th District as opposed to the national interests that we have? What's our position in the world?
So two great questions. So people are often confused by what a federal official candidate can do versus state and local, right? So in principle, there are things. For example, the public transportation, there's federal grants. We would need federal grants for extending the Blue Line, for example. So there are things that we're going to look toward to the federal government to help us with. That's one example. Another is this TCI gas tax that could be 17 cents a gallon. That would be a ridiculous amount of money. It would be really damaging to our economy if this was put in place. This carbon tax on gasoline. that's interstate because different states are getting together on it. So therefore, that's the Commerce Clause comes in. So the federal government does have some control over that. So those are the things I could do in terms of what local issues I can help with as a representative. Another thing is, and this is another reason why I'm running, and this makes sense to people, again, if you're on the left and you say, okay, I'll never vote for a Republican, I want to convince everybody I'm a very unconventional conservative and a very unconventional Republican in many ways. And I can explain that as we talk. But just logistically, we haven't had a Republican in Congress in a quarter century here. And we're not getting things done because it's basically a do-nothing, obstruct, impeach, oppose Congress fighting President Trump. And President Trump, we got the executive branch, we have the Senate, and so things aren't getting done. I hear Susan Collins in Maine, they get things done and get 3, 4, 5 times faster because she has a pipeline into Washington. So if for no other reason, having a Republican in Massachusetts helps us be able to do things for our state because I'll work with Congress. The left here, the Democrats will not. They have Congress, they have the House, but they don't have the Senate, they don't have the executive branch, so they can't get very much done.
Well,
I think that's another good reason to look for a Republican to finally have at least not just a one-party state here.
You commented earlier that talking about the Blue Line coming to the North Shore, it took the city of Beverly, the state, city of Salem, about 50 years to do a new Beverly-Salem bridge.
Yes.
Okay? So now you're talking about a number of other cities to go through the North Shore of the Blue Line. 75, 80 years maybe?
Yep.
Keeping in mind it's always Democrats that are doing it. So what you're saying to me, or what I'm hearing is Democrats talk, but they don't have action.
That's right. Yeah, and that's pretty standard. Again, you look at Exhibit A, Seth Moulton, talking about all the great things he's going to do. I'm going to be an agent for change. Well, he went to the swamp, and maybe he had good ideas when he started, but he's 100% apparently just like everybody else that goes to the swamp. But nothing gets done, and he's just looking out for his own self-ambitions. How can I better myself? Instead of thinking, am I here to serve, or am I here to lord over people, rule, and take a paycheck? Yeah, I know I have no doubt that there'll be challenges ahead for the things I want to do, but I have kind of I think in a positive way, a forceful personality, and I'm focused, and when I want to do something, I find a way to do it, and I do it. And that's the way I run my businesses. That's how I was an athlete. That's how I just run my life. And I just think that, I think we need more people like that serving us in Congress, and I don't see many of them. And it could be probably my combination of my background as an engineer and a business owner and other things. I just see things like there's a problem, we have to solve it. And it drives me crazy when a bunch of incompetent people are representatives, not just Moulton, but I don't think any of our representatives in Congress in Massachusetts are doing us any good right now.
Okay, so how do you feel about term limits? Because my gut feeling is term limits will force people to do the job because they're only going to be in there for a certain amount of time.
Well, yes, and so being that I wouldn't even probably have 3/4 of Congress run a color photocopier in one of my businesses, says what I think about the quality of the people running in Congress. And the corruption is outrageous. The skill level is low. I'm sorry, being a lobbyist, building yourself to be a lobbyist is not something the country needs, right? So I believe I came up with an idea of 12-year term limits, 12 years based on two terms of a senator, two Senate terms, and that would be to make it fair. Then the House would get 6 terms. And the president's already limited to 2 terms. And I think it's funny when people, mostly on the left, will complain about term limits. And of course, the old, the walking skeletons in Congress will talk about term limits. Oh, that's so bad. Yeah, because you've been living here for 50 years and you haven't been, first of all, they haven't been in touch with society. When you're in that bubble, it's like being in a university. And how university professors are. They're mostly socialist because they live in this bubble. They don't understand the real world. So 12 years, I think, would be perfect because that would encourage people. You could do enough if you can make it, if you get elected that often. And then you move on. You have another fresher generation that's more in touch with what's happening in the real world. And they come in and they bring a fresh perspective. And you don't have that absurd level of corruption where you have the Nancy Pelosi's of the world making worth hundreds of millions of dollars. How do you make hundreds of millions of dollars when you're making $150 a year? It doesn't add up. It's only getting paid for influence. So all of that would be eliminated if we did 12-year term limits. And I think that's not bad. I think that's a reasonable length of time.
Yeah, and that gets back to the fundamentals of the Constitution that the original founding fathers, you're not supposed to talk about it anymore, but they had the concept that Cincinnati, so that was the name I'm thinking of, who went to war, fought, and as soon as the war is over, he went back to his farm. And the whole idea of making it a career for the rest of your life, I think, is contrary to the original thinking. And we need this turnover of people with new ideas. And you mentioned your background. You're an engineer and a marketing man. Exactly how does your background fit with being a congressman?
Well, I'll say a couple things. So just getting real back to what you talked about with serving, I'm big on that because I'm Catholic, and people say the priest is on top and they're controlling it. A Franciscan priest takes a vow of poverty, for God's sakes. They're serving nonstop. My nephew works at the St. Anthony Shrine in Boston, where they're all Franciscans. They all take a vow of poverty. I mean, that'd be great. How about we do a vow of poverty for Congress? Well, how would that go? Right? Use the Franciscan vow. But serving is like you're serving.
But you're serving.
You're not lording over. You're serving. And you're below. And actually, for me, this is business-wise not a progression. This is, I run a marketing agency. I make more money in the private world. This isn't some I want to make money type of thing. I'd be better off running, and that's why people don't run often, because why are they going to, it's actually a downgrade for many people. But I'm looking at this as serving, as actually, so you serve the military, this is serving. And I'm not looking at this as some kind of egotistical, thing. And I want to do it because the people, I know I can help the district. And when you ask how, I'm sorry, but running a business is hard. Running a business, and I started multiple businesses, some failed, some succeeded. I had a surfing brand. I'm reviving now. I have a marketing agency I've had for years. I do real estate, and it's all hard work. And you learn from that. And I met a lot of people in life. I learned a lot. I've written books. I've been in a rock band with a bunch of surfers. I've done a lot of things. And I think that kind of experience kind of makes me more of like a real world person. And I have real world experience. And And I believe I connect with people on all different levels. I had a printing shop in Everett, blue-collar print shop for apparel. I had about 30 employees for about 10 years. And I know how to connect with people. I know what the needs are of people of all different strata, from blue-collar workers up to the highest level of CEOs that I work with. So I believe I can bring a really unique perspective because I have such a varied kind of a Renaissance background that most don't come to the table with in politics. And I think that will help, especially the business side and the science side. I was an engineer at MIT Lincoln Labs out of college for 5 years and tested a space-based telescope that went into orbit. And then I left and started a marketing company. I can tell that's a long story after that. But the idea being that we also only have 10 scientists in Congress. We're talking about global warming that, I'm sorry, these nitwits don't know what they're talking about. They have no science background whatsoever, and they're bloviating whatever their leftist friends and party officials are telling them. Well, I've actually looked at it, and I can actually say from a scientific perspective, give an actual assessment of it. So I think there's a lot of reasons why we need more scientists and engineers in Congress and people of different backgrounds, and I think I can fit the bill pretty well. So
earlier you mentioned that you were opposed to Common Core, but you didn't say why. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand.
Yes. Is
why are you opposed to Common Core?
Well, I could say kind of a high level. We need local and parental control of schools, and we tried Common Core, and test scores went down, the money went up, test scores went down. Federal control of education is ruining education. It's not always expensive, but it makes sense. You send your money all the way to Washington, and then they make all these rules, and then it comes back and they dictate, like the left loves to do. They love to dictate. They shouldn't even be running for president. The left should just be running for dictator of America because everything they're doing is dictate, and it doesn't work. And so if you spend more money on something and the quality goes down, smart people in business stop spending money on those things. It seems like people in Congress are the opposite of business-minded, the opposite of smart. Let's keep doing bad things and then with bad results and put more money in. So there's that, and then parental control. I mean, when it comes to, I'm gay, and I don't believe in identity politics clearly, but I think that also it gives me a diverse kind of way of looking at things. But I'm not for, radical child regendering. And I have friends that are drag queens in Boston and other places. They're not for having drag queen story hour and showing kids their lifestyle because they think that's not something that kids should see. So the left is on fire with these crazy radical things that even my people in that world are not for, most of them. So it's just crazy.
Well, really what you're saying
they're pushing that and agenda and test scores. They're all over the place. It's just bad.
They have, you said the magic word. They've got an agenda.
Yep.
And
they're pushing an agenda.
They push the agenda regardless of whether it works or not. And the point you're making is that when you're spending money on something and it's not working, like you say, somebody would rationally say, why don't we try something else? Oh no, we need more money. And we need more money. So they keep escalating the budget, and the results do not generate any valued scores. In fact, that's one of the problems that Common Core has. It's all on test scores.
Yes.
And yet, when was the last time you went to work and somebody said, we're going to give you a test today?
Yeah. They say, are you selling? Are you producing? It's not, we're going to test you and test you and test you.
Yeah.
So I believe that obviously there's certain logic to having certain tests, SATs and things like that. That makes sense on a certain level. But Common Core, that's on steroids. And, nothing for nothing. So since when has the left cared about results? They care about their ideology they're pushing. That's what they care about.
Well,
that's what the people.
What they're after is tax money.
And the ideology is probably second to actually how can I line my pockets and better myself. Just like the teacher unions, they're about themselves more than they are about the children. It's great teachers and obviously, but the teachers union is about protecting itself, and the kids come second. It's all upside down and backwards. And the same with you go to Congress, you're there to serve. You're not there to fleece and control and, just be this creepy, corrupt person like virtually all the Democrats, not all of them, but a majority of them. And, I'm not saying it doesn't happen on the right, but philosophically, if you're truly a conservative, you believe in what I'm talking about, which is if you're a proper conservative, you believe in limited government and freedom and not having ineffective, expensive government take your money and give you.
The problem you're alluding to right now is that there is nobody in the middle.
Yep.
And the two parties are being sucked off into the extremes of left and right.
Yeah.
And we're getting down to the old John Hightower comment that all you find in the middle of the road is a yellow stripe and a dead armadillo. So that anybody who's in the middle gets attacked from both sides. So in order to make something happen, you've got to get both sides together, because both sides do have some good ideas. They don't quite mesh. And in between the two, there is that mesh that you're looking for.
Yep.
And how can you get to that point?
Well, I can say that I have a little different perspective. I don't think it's so much that the two sides are here as much as the left has left the basic fundamentals of what America stands for and went way outside. So I think, in my opinion, I believe one of my ideas in my book I wrote in 2016, and it was the inspiration of my nonprofit Grand Opportunity USA, or Go USA, was to take the Grand Old Party and rebrand it as the Grand Opportunity Party, and make our message opportunity. So that's why I love the color. The colors are red, white, and blue, like the flag is red, white, and blue. And the idea of opportunity is that's the mission. I believe the mission, the purpose of government, not just America, the purpose of government specifically is unity, liberty, and opportunity. Unity being you can't have a country if you're not united. If you're warring each other, you don't have a country, right? So you have to be united, like the stars and the flag are a symbol of uniting. The stripes and the flag are the symbols of unity. I mean, of liberty. That we died to have our liberty, and liberty is what we fought for. The greatest nation on earth. There wasn't really liberty in the world prior to that, prior to America, like we have it. And then unity is the result. The opportunity is the benefit we reap from unity and liberty. And you put all that together, the purpose of government is unity. So my feeling is, I consider it almost like the opportunity party. If I'm for opportunity for people and for society, and if someone's against opportunity, I'm going to fight them. And it's not just purely right or left. So opportunity is
you've got to have a system
Yep.
where somebody can take advantage of the opportunities.
That's right.
And a lot of the problems, and I think this is where the left keeps coming back to, we need more government involvement, is they recognize that the city schools, the big city schools, are having a miserable time trying to get to the kids. And they think that more government involvement is going to do it. So we need a different approach. And I'm not sure what that different approach is, but you're going to represent me. How are you going to find a different approach?
Again, I think the reality is, and this is where I differ. So I differ. So I'm not considered some right-wing ideologue because I'm not. We have a problem in the Republican Party, the diversity. The left worships at the altar of diversity. I believe diversity without unity is division. So the left worships diversity above all else, way ahead of America. And I say that, well,
that's identity politics.
Yeah, so identity politics is a problem, right? So looking at from the Republican perspective, though, every demographic other than white and Christian and middle-aged and older votes Democrat, from 2-1 to almost 20-1. So there's a problem. Okay, Houston, we have a problem. There is a problem in the Republican Party. We're not doing a good enough job explaining to people why our values work for everybody, because clearly the people that benefit the most from the Trump economy, for example, are minorities and people in the lower economic rungs. So, Trump is only out for the rich. That's not true. Over 80% of the people that benefited from most are minorities in our country. Getting back to that story, getting back to
Churchill's comment that
yes,
if you're 20 years old and you're not very compassionate, you have no heart. If you're 40 years old and you're not conservative, you have no brain. So part of the problem is growing up in the world and recognizing what it is. But at the same time, we've got to recognize that we've gone through pretty much 27 minutes, and you got about 3 minutes left.
Oh, wait, what do you have? Okay. So with that being said, the big picture is, you said, what can I do different? So I look at it from a market perspective. Again, the only thing in history that's really been effective at increasing quality and reducing costs on any level has been the market competition. So whether that's healthcare, whether that's education, these are the things that we need to look at. And we do need to care about people on the kind of lower economic rungs and certain people that are not getting the same advantage out of the gates. So if you don't have the opportunity to take advantage of opportunity, then you're in trouble. So we need to look at that. But again, the left looks at it, let's add more government. I'm looking at it, let's add more freedom. And that works a lot better. It's proven throughout history to work better. So
okay, so we've run out of time. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck. And you're so far only the only Republican running.
Yes.
So it's from now till Election Day in November, right?
Yes. And so
well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. And we will have more shows as the season goes on. And it's going to be a lively one. Stay tuned.
Thank you.